Former U.S. President Jimmy Carter passed away at the age of 100, a remarkable milestone that ended a century-long life full of achievements, struggles, and profound impact on the world. This news was confirmed by the Carter Center, the organization he founded, dedicated to advancing human rights, democracy, and public health globally. Carter, who had lived longer than any U.S. president in history, celebrated his 100th birthday just a few months before his death in October. Carter Center shared the announcement, revealing that he had died on Sunday afternoon at his home in Plains, Georgia, where he had lived most of his life. His passing marks the end of an era for the United States, and for many it represents the loss of a man who, despite his controversial presidency, had an immense and lasting impact on the world. Born on October 1, 1924, in the small town of Plains, Georgia, Carter was raised in a deeply religious family with strong values of service, integrity, and humility. His early years were spent on the family farm, where he learned the importance of hard work, perseverance, and community. Carter's upbringing as a peanut farmer influenced much of his later political career and his ability to relate to the struggles of ordinary people. After completing his education and serving in the U.S. Navy, Carter returned to his hometown and took over his family's farm, where he became known for his commitment to the land and to the people of Georgia. His political career began in the 1960s when he was elected to the Georgia State Senate. Over time, his reputation grew as a politician who was deeply committed to the people and the values of democracy. Carter's rise to prominence culminated in his successful bid for the presidency in 1976, when he ran as an outsider candidate, promising to bring integrity and transparency to the White House following the Watergate scandal. His campaign resonated with voters who were disillusioned by the corruption and cynicism of Washington, and Carter's message of honesty, accountability, and moral leadership helped him secure a narrow victory over the incumbent Gerald Ford. Carter's presidency, however, would not be without its challenges. From the beginning, his administration was beset by difficult economic circumstances, including runaway inflation, high unemployment, and a fuel crisis. These economic problems were compounded by international crises, most notably the Iran hostage crisis, which began in 1979. Iranian militants seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and held 52 Americans hostage for 444 days, an event that dominated the headlines and became a symbol of the perceived weakness of Carter's leadership. The situation was dire, and despite his best efforts to negotiate the release of the hostages, the crisis remained unresolved throughout his presidency. However, Carter's time in office was not defined solely by these setbacks. In the midst of these challenges, Carter also achieved significant diplomatic successes. One of the most notable of these was the Camp David Accords, which he brokered in 1978 between Egypt and Israel. Peace treaty signed at the U.S. presidential retreat in Maryland ended decades of hostilities between the two nations and brought Carter widespread acclaim. The accords were hailed as a historic achievement in the pursuit of peace in the Middle East, and Carter's role in facilitating the agreement earned him a Nobel Peace Prize in 2002, decades after leaving office. Despite this success, Carter's presidency was marred by his inability to effectively manage the economic difficulties facing the nation. Rising inflation and interest rates, coupled with the oil embargo and energy shortages, left many Americans frustrated and disillusioned with his leadership. His inability to resolve these issues contributed to his loss in the 1980 presidential election to Republican candidate Ronald Reagan. Reagan's campaign portrayed Carter as a weak leader who had failed to address the nation's economic woes and was unable to effectively respond to international challenges. Carter lost the election in a landslide, winning only 6 states plus Washington, D.C., an outcome that seemed to confirm the critics who had long dismissed him as an ineffective president. In the aftermath of his loss, Carter's political career seemed to have come to an end. He was often held up by Republicans as a symbol of liberal ineptitude, and many in his own party distanced themselves from him, viewing his presidency as a failure. However, Carter's story did not end with his defeat in 1980. Instead, he embarked on a new chapter in his life, one that would reshape his legacy in ways that few could have predicted at the time. After leaving the White House, Carter could have easily taken the path that many former presidents follow, writing memoirs, giving speeches, and making a comfortable living off his political fame. But Carter chose a different route. Instead of seeking fame and fortune, he returned to the small, humble house in Plains, Georgia, where he had lived before entering politics. It was a decision that would become emblematic of his character. Carter had no interest in becoming a wealthy former president, and he made it clear that he was not motivated by material success. He once told the Washington Post in 2018 that he never really wanted to be rich. Rather, he was driven by a sense of duty to serve others. Carter's post-presidential years were marked by his tireless work on humanitarian causes. He and his wife, Rosalind, whom he married in 1946 and was devoted to for 77 years, worked together on numerous projects, most notably Habitat for Humanity, an organization dedicated to building affordable housing for low-income families. Carter's involvement with Habitat for Humanity was more than just symbolic. He physically worked on construction sites, often alongside volunteers, hammering nails and building homes for those in need. His hands-on approach to helping others further solidified his image as a man of the people, someone who believed in the power of action over rhetoric. In addition to his work with Habitat for Humanity, Carter focused much of his efforts on global health and human rights. He and the Carter Center, which he founded in 1982, worked tirelessly to address issues such as malaria, guinea worm disease, and river blindness. Carter Center has been instrumental in eradicating diseases that once plagued millions of people around the world. Carter's commitment to public health was matched only by his dedication to advancing democracy and human rights. Carter Center has played a leading role in monitoring elections and promoting fair democratic practices in countries around the world. His efforts to improve the lives of others have earned him international recognition and respect, and his legacy as a champion for the marginalized and oppressed will be remembered for generations to come. As Carter's health declined in recent years, he continued to focus on his humanitarian work, even as he made the difficult decision to stop receiving medical treatment for an undisclosed illness in 2023. Instead, he chose to receive hospice care at his home in Plains, Georgia, surrounded by family. It was a quiet end for a man whose life had been anything but quiet. His death in February 2024 brought an outpouring of tributes from around the world. Political leaders, human rights organizations, and countless individuals whose lives had been touched by Carter's work mourned his passing. In his final years, Carter had been revered not just as a former president but as a global icon for peace and justice. Jimmy Carter's life is a testament to the idea that a person's true legacy is not defined by their time in office but by their actions after leaving power. While many Americans initially viewed him as a failed president, time has revealed the true extent of his contributions to the world. Carter's post-presidential work, driven by his deep moral conviction and a genuine desire to help those in need, has made him one of the most respected and admired figures in modern history. His unwavering commitment to human rights, his tireless work on behalf of the poor and marginalized, and his dedication to global peace have secured his place in history as one of the greatest former presidents the United States has ever known.